Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today's webinar during this really important week, FAFSA Week of Action being put together by the Department of Education and the White House. We're really excited to be joined by some great state leaders today. First, I'm going to do some general logistics for today's session. So if we can go to the next slide. Today's webinar is being recorded, just for everyone's knowledge. And if you have any tech issues during the presentation today, please reach out to communications@bdtrust.org, and we'll be sure to make sure that we can help ameliorate those as quickly as possible. Also, you'll notice that in the bottom bar of your Zoom, you have both a chat function and a Q&A function. For the chat function, the panelists and myself will not be looking at this as an official way to ask questions, but more so to build community among our audience today. So if you want to go ahead and put your name and where you're coming from geographically and or your institution or organization, that would be great just to kind of get some conversation started. If you want to direct a question to myself or somebody else on the panel at any point during the presentation today, which we will get to at the end of the presentation, use the Q&A feature to ask that question. My colleague Stephanie Baker on the higher education team here at BDT is monitoring that and will be helping in the background to make sure those questions get to myself so I can ask the panel. And then finally, if we don't get to your question today, be sure to reach out to us at highered@bdttrust.org, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Benefits Data Trust Chief Executive Officer Trooper Sanders to welcome us all today and kind of set the stage. Trooper?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to this really, really important conversation at this really make or break time for our students to navigate the federal financial aid process, get to school, and get on with their lives. Last week, I was in a conversation with someone, and they flagged the fact that by the mid-2030s, the United States is going to have an acute doctor shortage, which will probably be compounded by other caregiver shortages. And I made the point to them that the answer, the solution to saving that crisis in 2035, those students are hopefully entering college this fall. And they are the ones who we are trying to serve and muster every resource that we have across the country to make sure that students who want to attend school, who've been admitted to schools, are able to get the help that they need to move ahead. And so this is such important work. I think there's some important lessons around when we have good policy, but have lessons to learn on implementation and how we move forward. So I just want to thank everybody for all the work. I want to also particularly thank my Benefits Data Trust colleagues who have been working around the clock to do everything that we can to address this national moment. And on with this really important webinar and discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Trooper. You know, as Trooper said, this is such a critically important issue, and I know everyone on the panel and everyone that registered today understands that we find ourselves at a time when you know, FAFSA completions are down nationwide, and there may be looking at an enrollment crisis at many of our institutions. So it's really cool that we have such great leaders from across the country today to share some of the strategies that they have been looking at to help assist those in the audience. Real quickly, I'll introduce myself before introducing our panel today. I'm Daniel O'Donnell. I'm the Associate Director of Higher Education here at Benefits Data Trust. This topic is one of both a personal and professional interest to me. You know, professionally, obviously here at BDT, we are really committed to making sure that education, which is the great equalizer, is also equitable and accessible to all. And that starts with students being able to have access to the Pell Grant through the FAFSA application. And then personally, I myself was a recipient of a Pell Grant. I'm a first-generation low-income college student, and really see in my own life what that has helped in my own economic mobility and trajectory of my career, and just making sure that we have that kind of access for more students is critically important to me. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists. So I'm going to give you each a question, and I will call you out in a particular order to answer. So if you could introduce yourself to today's audience and briefly describe how your role connects to FAFSA completion in your state. And we'll start with Deanna Brown.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Deanna Brown. I am the Director of School Services here at FIA, Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency. And I lead a team of 13 higher education access partners located throughout the Commonwealth. And what our team does is really focus on outreach to secondary and post-secondary schools, as well as community organizations. And we do a lot of financial aid nights, in-person events. We also do FAFSA completion events all over the Commonwealth. And we also hold monthly webinars on various financial aid topics on our website, fia.org. So we're here to help everyone in the Commonwealth get their information in, and we're here to help with this whole FAFSA season.
Thank you, Deanna. And now I'll turn to Ebony Holmes.
Hi, I am Ebony Holmes with the Louisiana Office of Student Financial Assistance, where I currently serve as the Director of Public Information and Advising. And so in my role at LOSFA, I kind of oversee the dissemination of information regarding all of the programs that we administer. That includes the outreach that we do, also FAFSA completion events, presentations, browsers, and professional development, particularly with financial aid administrators and counselors. And so in that role, I also currently oversee our agency's FAFSA outreach efforts and lead those efforts for our state.
Thank you, Ebony. Next, we'll turn to Karen Rubican.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be with you today, representing school counselors. I'm Karen Rubican, the school counselor advisor for the Pennsylvania Department of Education. In this role, I provide technical assistance and support to the school counselors across the Commonwealth while having a responsibility in policy development and curriculum regulations. Before this, I was a high school counselor in southwestern Pennsylvania, supporting a caseload of over 400 students and serving as the lead for much of our college and career initiatives, including financial aid. In addition, I'm a parent of a college graduate and a rising college senior, and have assisted families and guardians, independent students, and others in completing their FAFSAs. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. Thank you, Karen. Next, we'll turn to Kate Marling.
Hi, my name is Kate Marling. I'm the Post-Secondary Transitions Manager at the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. My role was recently created to assist with many projects geared towards post-secondary education achievement, including assisting with our Indiana Pre-Admissions Initiative, as well as the College Success Program grant, where we embed student success coaches in our post-secondary institutions to support our first generation and 21st century scholars population. Not just with the FAFSA filing, but with many different things. And then, of course, our ongoing FAFSA strategy, which supports students from high school all the way through college. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Kate, love having you here. And I'll just point out that I myself am a 21st Century Scholarship alumni, so love having Indiana represented. And finally, we'll turn to Shane Krappel.
Sure. So, hey, everybody, I'm Shane Krappel with the Louisiana Office of Student Financial Assistance, where I serve as the Director of Collegiate and Community Outreach. In my role, I oversee the agency's marketing, promotions, and communications efforts regarding our programs and services, as well as our partnerships with community organizations, our post-secondary institutions, as well as business and industry. And then my team works very closely with Ebony so that we can amplify and disseminate the information and the message regarding FAFSA completion, resources, and I was also a Pell Grant recipient as a student. So.
Fantastic. Love the diverse array of experiences and backgrounds on the panel today. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started with some panel questions. As a reminder to our audience, if anything comes up where you'd like to learn more, please feel free to drop a question in the Q&A. If you want to direct that at a particular panelist, please ensure that you note that in your question. So Karen, I'd like to start with you. In your role with the Pennsylvania Department of Education, you interface with school counselors, which is the typical beginning point for many students' FAFSA completion journey. What are you hearing from them, the school counselors, in terms of the impacts on students this year, particularly about a student's ability to finalize their post-secondary plans?
Great question. As we consider the class of 2024, I want to be sure that we are framing their experiences as unique and diverse, much like the schools that they're looking at. They're considering technical schools, career schools, two-year schools, community and four-year colleges, any post-secondary that accepts federal financial aid. So I want to be inclusive of all of those students. Counselors report that students are depositing at schools without aid packages or with estimated aid packages based on the CSS profile. They want this to be done. They want to know that they have a seat at that table. They want to secure housing. The pieces that cause secondary stress for students in the process. They want the relief of knowing where they're going to be in the fall. Should they be unable to afford it, some schools will offer refunds and others will not. The students that have applied and are waiting for the aid packages to come are doing so knowing that the clock is running out. Scholarship applications have been challenging this year. I don't think we thought about that initially. Some programs pivoted to alternative methods of verifying need, but the students didn't always get those messages. A major scholarship program in Pennsylvania told me that many students started but did not finish their applications this year. This work of figuring out your future is laden with anxiety and stress in a good year. And I think we can all agree that this has not been a good year. Many universities delayed acceptance, but not others. Others didn't. So May 1st is fast approaching. We did hear some good news this morning from the Pennsylvania State Grant that the deadline's been pushed to June 1. So perhaps some more PAIHGs will follow suit. Many students have delayed submitting the FAFSA until the problems are resolved. They hear the talk, they read the paper, they see the news, and they hear the fear and frustration from other folks, and then just decide that the best thing to do is wait. The worry expressed by counselors is that some students will take these challenges as a sign that this isn't meant for them. The students that would benefit the most from financial aid are the most impacted by the problems and delays and glitches. School counselors, bless their hearts, shout out to school counselors, have worked overtime to try to keep up with the changes, to educate their community and hold events with FIA and others, as well as to assist individual families in working through the glitches while managing all of the other tasks that they have in their high school. State testing, AP exams, and graduation is right around the corner. Worry about who's going to help these students when school is closed is palpable. Concerns were raised about maintaining traditions like Decision Day. How do you celebrate Decision Day when students don't have decisions?
Thank you. And Karen, I'll just echo shout out to school counselors because they are really, really bearing a lot of the weight of the confusing complexity of this year. Shane, I'd like to turn to you next. In your role, you're responsible for promoting the various initiatives and strategies that the state of Louisiana is implementing to increase FAFSA completion in the state. Do you have any insights for our audience on how they can break through all the noise around FAFSA this year to ensure that those initiatives are being leveraged by school counselors, students, and higher education partners?
Sure. So right off the bat, during the summer, we really shifted our focus on what we would do and how we would approach this. The form opening in December instead of October. So we really knew that our message would be different and the timeline would be different. So we reviewed all the available information on Better FAFSA, started to develop that messaging and tried to communicate it to school counselors, stakeholders, students, parents as quickly as possible, with a focus on preparing for when that form opened, making sure that they had everything available so that when it opened and they would already be behind in time, that they had everything that they needed in order to get that done as quickly as possible. So we updated our completion guide, our FSA ID guide, our FAFSA worksheet, and focused on why it was important to complete the FAFSA. So we wanted that to be part of our messaging as well. We also overhauled our FAFSA webpage on the law school website to try to make it as streamlined and user-friendly as possible. Big emphasis on FAFSA assistance. Anything that they needed before the form opened, as well as during and after. And then we highlighted our new buddy Wyatt as well. We wanted to make sure that school counselors, our partners, and student parents were aware that that was also a resource that was available to them. And so some of the things that we employed would try to be anticipating what issues would be. Based on Ebony's team's knowledge of working with students with FAFSA completion and just trying to create messaging and resources to anticipate that. So as they popped up, we were able to address those quickly. And so we also monitored what people were saying about the FAFSA. So that we can be responsive with resources, with information. If we needed to make adjustments to our own resources or our messaging, we even went in and changed some wording and the order of some things on our FAFSA page just to try to be more responsive and see what those issues were as they were cropping up. We would adjust information in our campaigns. We would also reach out to legislative partners so that we could provide resources or assistance to their constituents or clarify some things that we may have seen discussions on social media. And then we were also able to provide feedback to other partners that we had as well, issues that we were seeing. So that we could get information resources that we needed in order to get those to students, parents, or school counselors. So there's a lot of misinformation and confusion out there about the FAFSA. So we tried to be as clear and transparent and responsive as possible, even though that can be a little hard to overcome. So I found that partners and allies and champions are very important to help us, amplify what the message is about why students need to complete the FAFSA, what options are available to them should they choose not to complete it, and also what assistance and support is available to them so that they can get the thing completed and submitted. And so that and trying to keep in tune with the needs, the concerns, the questions with those that you're servicing. You just want to do that so you can be as helpful and responsive as possible to what their needs are. Because a lot of times they might be complaining or have these questions and they don't reach out to us to let us know directly. So we really try to keep an eye out with what the buzz is, what the questions and what the concerns are on that. And we have found that to be a helpful approach in communications and trying to develop whatever resource or assistance is needed to help students and parents with the completion of the FAFSA and understanding the why behind why they should complete the FAFSA.
Fantastic. If I could sum up your answer there, it takes a village to raise a kid, but it also takes a village to get their FAFSA completed and bring
especially this year. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you, Shane. Kate, I'd like to come to you next. Indiana's been a leader this year in keeping the delta in completion from last year to this year among the smallest of all the states in the nation. Congrats on that. As the state continues the implementation of a statewide FAFSA completion requirement into the next academic year, what lessons will you be applying from this year to make sure that launch is successful?
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. So with this year being the first year that filing the FAFSA as a high school senior was required by legislation in Indiana, our commission staff and our state partners were already geared up to increase our outreach and support, both to the counselors and the parents and students. If you wanted to look up that legislation, it is Senate Enrolled Act 167 from 2023. I think the new requirement and delayed opening of the FAFSA motivated all of us to maintain and increase our communications, both through our regular channels as well as reach out to some new partners and utilize media and mail campaigns that we hadn't potentially done in the past years. Most notably, our September letters that ended up going out because of our new Indiana pre-admissions initiative advertised the importance of filing the FAFSA. That went out in September. And then later on in March, once the FAFSA was opened, we mailed out more letters to every high school senior and all current college students with remaining state aid eligibility and initiated email-based re-enrollment campaigns as well, with FAFSA filing as being the first step. This year, we piloted a philanthropy-funded initiative that embedded staff in schools to support FAFSA filing and college applications. We also were able to expand the Commission's K-12 outreach team. And then also we provided funding for community-based organizations to provide out-of-school FAFSA filing events to target our low-income students and students of color. We have historically had 8 outreach coordinators throughout the state for many years who have, spent time building those connections and offering support to the schools in their regions, which really has been integral to being able to support those counselors and high school seniors with this new legislative requirement, as well as just this new FAFSA form. With the delayed opening, our outreach coordinators, at least in the fall, were able to focus on that FSAID creation to hopefully get everybody prepared for filing that FAFSA, and then focus on FAFSA filing specifically in the spring. We were actually able to add a 9th outreach coordinator with philanthropic support this year, which was fantastic. And our outreach coordinators and other commission staff, we partner with InvestEd and our Indiana Student Financial Aid Association on FAFSA events. And this year, actually, our annual College Goal Sunday, which is celebrating its 35th anniversary, we were able to have 40 locations all over the state, which supported FAFSA filing, which was great. The communication I think we received from students and parents who were able to reach out to their outreach coordinators, the counselors, and commission staff has been invaluable. Just knowing the barriers that students and parents are facing potentially in real time has been great and helpful for us to sort of update our messaging to be more impactful. In addition to being able to address individual questions and concerns, we're able to be alerted to issues that we sometimes heard about before federal student aid let us know. So we could be able to collaborate with our partners. And then, as I think many states are doing, we're already looking forward to our 25-26 FAFSA strategy. We're planning to continue to have our outreach coordinators start early in working in schools, and our outreach to start as early as possible. This year has certainly taught us a lot of lessons, and I think we'll take those moving forward in our strategy for this next year.
Fantastic, thank you. I love hearing the kind of in-person embedded approach across the state, really driving assistance there. And it is a great setup for the rest of our conversation here. Ebony, I'd like to turn to you next. Louisiana has long been a national leader in FAFSA completion, and those of us that work in the college access space were surprised to see the recent decision in the state to repeal the FAFSA requirement for graduation. Can you tell us a bit about Louisiana's strategy to maintain high FAFSA completion without that requirement in place?
Yeah. So a fun fact about that mandate is that it actually calls for submission. So the fact that we were actually #1 in completion was just kind of icing on the cake for us. Prior to that FAFSA policy, our agency already used the FAFSA as the application for some of our state aid, like TOPS, which is our signature scholarship program, and the Louisiana Go Grant, which is a need-based program. So we already had kind of established a culture of FAFSA completion in the state prior to that mandate taking effect in 2015. I heard Kate mention College Goal Sunday. We also were involved in College Goal Sunday back in, I think, 2008 is when we were doing our College Goal Sunday events. And then when the mandate took effect, we basically just kind of switched from post-secondary level FAFSA completion events to high school level FAFSA completion events. So repealing the policy changes the graduation requirement, but for us, it doesn't change the work that we know that we need to do. So with that in mind, knowing that last year for Louisiana's class of 2023, there was $47 million in Pell Grant funding left on the table. So of course, we want to make sure that that does not continue to happen and that our students have access to the financial aid that they're going to need in order to matriculate in college. So for us, policy, no policy, it'll be business as usual. We'll continue to model best practices in FAFSA completion. We launched our FAFSA Now campaign in 2020. We will continue to do FAFSA completions in high schools. We did our FAFSA Frenzy Week this year, where we partnered with our post-secondary institutions and did 23 events across the state. We run error reports to let students know, like, this is what's wrong with your FAFSA, this is how you fix it. We have an on-site lab. We also are putting a call out to our counselors in our high schools and districts to invite us to come out and do completion events. So, we're texting Wyatt virtual office hours. We're running a FAFSA marathon right now. So that's, for us, it's just going to be, we're going to continue to do what we've always done.
Fantastic. And I love and appreciate that dedication to the work. The work still has to happen. Deanna, we'll end our round robin here of questions with you. FIA has been testing and learning with a lot of new virtual FAFSA completion strategies this year. Can you share with the audience what some of those strategies are and what you've learned from them?
Sure, absolutely. So in addition to the various in-person events that we do throughout the state, this year we understood the need to have professionals available to assist families and meet them where they are at. So we decided to offer virtual FAFSA completion sessions in Teams breakout rooms where families could schedule an appointment with an individual access partner, and then we help them complete the FAFSA virtually. So it has, we had one event earlier in the month, and we're doing another one on April 30th. So it's been very successful. And I think that what this has taught us is that you kind of have to throw everything at the door. You do your in-person events, you do your virtual events, you do your statewide webinars, and then that really helps you, get a good grasp of everyone that needs that help. The other thing that we just recently decided to do yesterday is during the month of May, we're going to actually be doing virtual office hours every Wednesday. So our higher education access partners will be available to assist families with any questions that they might have. A lot of families are having questions right now regarding FAFSA corrections. So we're going to make ourselves available throughout the day to help families with those questions. And then, as Karen mentioned earlier, our board of directors just made the decision this morning to push back our FAFSA submission deadline to June 1st. So I think with the combination of all of these different things, doing everything that we have always done, providing toolkits, providing publications to families in Pennsylvania on our website. One of the other things that we did this year is because of the changes with the requirements on the FAFSA, there was some confusion in regards to who should be a contributor on my FAFSA. So one of the new publications that we created this year was a publication directly aimed at that. So I think with with all of these different things that we've done this year, this will only build on what we've been able to offer for families in schools throughout the Commonwealth.
Fantastic, thank you. We have about 10 minutes left of the panel, and so I'd like to give you each about 2 minutes to answer one final question. What is your closing call to action to those on the call today to best support students in completing the FAFSA as we enter the final weeks of this college application season? And I think we'll go in reverse order. So Deanna, if you don't mind me going back to you to start.
I think my call to action is just to encourage everyone to continue to complete the FAFSA form. Resources are out here for you. Reach out, if you're in Pennsylvania, reach out to FIA, reach out to high school counselors, and also don't forget to reach out to the financial aid officers that are available at post-secondary schools. They're there to help. And so if families are having concerns about, deadlines, financial aid offers, you want to make sure you are in good communication with those post-secondary schools, because they can help provide and help ease some of the anxiety that families might be having regarding this process.
Fantastic, thank you. Ebony?
Just to kind of echo what Deanna was saying, basically, I would say meet them where they are, right? Our parents and our students have shown a lot of grit and determination in kind of pushing through these issues. It's like you get through one thing, you get smacked by something else, but they're going to need help to do it. Right now, at LOSFA, it's an all hands on deck situation for us. We expanded our virtual office hours for our FAFSA marathon that we're doing this week for FAFSA Week of Action. They normally stop at 3. They're going to be stopping at 8 p.m. And we are actually booked through the rest of the month for those FAFSA marathon sessions and also for our normal virtual FAFSA sessions. If we're talking to a student and a parent and it's like, oh, well, I'm not free during the daytime, my outreach coordinators, they're like, hey, is it okay if I, do it after hours? Absolutely. Kind of just whatever it is that we need to do to get them through that. We had 2 team members at an event yesterday. They were there, you guys, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at a high school that had a very heavy Spanish-speaking population. Thank goodness one of the young ladies that was there from our agency actually speaks Spanish. And so she was calling me, asking about one of the questions, and I overhear her like speaking to the parent. And so it's just whatever needs to be done. We've translated a lot of our documents into Spanish, Vietnamese, based on feedback we've gotten from high school counselors that these are the resources that they need translated. Literally, as I was getting ready for this webinar, one of our state representatives that I've been helping called, and he's like, I need you to take a look at, at my FAFSA. And so today is my virtual day, but guess who will be going into the office after this webinar is over, so I can assist him with that application and make sure it's complete. So it's just crunch time, and we're going to make ourselves available however we can to make sure that we, have help front and center for our students and our families.
Fantastic. Really appreciate that. And meeting students where they're at and making sure you're providing resources in multiple avenues and languages is great. Kate, we'll turn to you next.
Thanks. Yeah, so our Indiana state priority deadline was April 15th. Students are now able to go in and correct to FAFSA if that's needed. So our outreach coordinators and partners are still here to engage with students and parents to make sure that they have those corrected and completed FAFSAs, as well as support anybody who was unable to file by that priority deadline. We do offer support for anybody who still needs to file, and then potentially if they didn't meet that deadline, to help them with the appeals process that we have as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Shane.
Sure. So I think a couple things. One is making sure that we're clearly communicating why you would want to complete the FAFSA. I think we can get caught up in marketing catchphrases and leave out some of the detail about this is what the benefits are if you fill this out, and this is what you could be missing out on if you don't complete it. Also, as more states look to universal FAFSA, some of the things that we've looked out here is just making sure that all of the partners, all of the stakeholders who are involved in that are on the same page when it comes to messaging and what's being said. That it's being made clear that people have a choice of whether or not they complete the FAFSA. You want to lay out clearly, this is why we strongly encourage this. This is why we believe you should. This is what you could miss out on if you don't. But the choice is yours to decide whether or not you complete it, or you do a waiver, or you meet some other qualification for whatever that requirement is. You just want to make sure that everyone is sharing the same message on that, because you could experience, I think, some roadblocks to what it is that's trying to be achieved with universal FAFSA.
Great, great advice for everyone in the panel today. And Karen, we'll come back where we started and end with you.
Awesome. We are getting onto the wire, but I want us to know that we still have time. It feels like we don't, but we still have some time. For counselors, consider a two-pronged approach to how you support your students: communication to the school community at large about the impacts of FAFSA and the supports available. We're so fortunate in Pennsylvania to have FIA as an access partner and support to us, and they're so available and so wonderful and so consistently positive when they work with families. It's tremendous. This is a time to engage your advisory council, your community partners, your school board, and getting the word out. Think about electronic billboards and putting simple FAFSA messages on marquees in front of your buildings, and ask the community to do the same thing. How cool would it be if you drive down your thoroughfare and you see FAFSA at the bank, FAFSA at the store, FAFSA at the school? Very powerful. Second, and I know how hard you all have been working in doing this work. Cross-reference your applications and your acceptances with what your students plan to do when they met with you in the fall, and see if there are places where you can triage and make some difference. There are students that have made up their mind that they're going to wait, and it's up to them. They get to do that, but where we can make a difference, let's try to make a difference. Let your administrators know what the crisis is and the urgency is, and ask for some support so that you can balance this major priority with the rest of the priorities that you have. And we know how extensive that list is for you. And utilize your access partners, your local financial aid offices, and others who support the work. We're not doing this by ourselves. Systemically, I think we need to think about how we re-examine equity and access to post-secondary. In Pennsylvania, there's two initiatives I just want to briefly highlight. FAFSA Go is a task force comprised of school counselors, financial aid officers, admissions counselors, FIA folks, PDE folks, to provide education and advocacy to increase FAFSA completion from the pandemic hits that we had. This isn't a new problem for us. It's just been kind of amplified because of the challenges with the new FAFSA. And we also have PA Maslow. So you see my background here today. PA Maslow is based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a collegiate basic needs initiative that looks at how we work to support students who have needs so that they can go to school, get their credential, and move on. As well as how we inform our high school students of the opportunity to be able to do this too, knowing that they're coming in with needs.
Karen, I love that final call about PA Maslow. Obviously, here at BDT, we're uniquely interested in connecting students to public benefits and other resources to support them while they're in college. And it's the next part of the story, right? They complete their FAFSA, they go to college, but how do we support them once they're there? So I really appreciate you calling that out. I'd like to thank all the panelists today for answering our questions and taking time to share some resources. We're going to call you all back in about 10 to 12 minutes after we're done talking a little bit about one of BDT's resources we'd like to share with everyone on the call today. And I'll give just a moment for back-end folks to get slides up. Fantastic, thank you. So obviously, like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, BDT is really focused on making education more equitable and accessible. And that starts with the Pell Grant, helping students get the Pell Grant, which starts with helping students complete the FAFSA. And so we've been working for about 5 years now on how can we leverage more technology, AI, to help students at scale. And what we have developed over those 5 years is our AI-powered chatbot, Wyatt, which is a tool to help drive FAFSA completion and college access. Wyatt has been featured in many national publications, many of these just this year as we were launching around the launch of this year's FAFSA. We started launching Wyatt in October to help students get their FSA IDs ready to go for when the FAFSA launched, much like Shane talked about, helping students get ready. And we have seen a pretty good uptake in Wyatt usage over the past couple of months. So Wyatt is really designed to be, a personal assistant, if you will, for students as they're completing the FAFSA, and also for parents and for school counselors. It's designed to reply to students' questions immediately with content that is informed by our partners at UAspire, which are nationally recognized experts in the FAFSA space, and it helped to address major barriers that students are facing when they're trying to just understand what the FAFSA is asking them, understand who their contributor is, understand how to complete the FAFSA with unique situations like mixed status households and things like that. Super easy to get started with Wyatt, especially with the SMS text bot. Students can go to getfafsahelp.org and fill out this very short form. All we need is their first name, their phone number, the state they live in, and kind of what their status is. So if they're a high school senior, maybe they are not in high school, but they're a graduate or a GED obtainer. Maybe they're in school and recompleting the FAFSA for their next year of schooling, or maybe they're a parent or a school counselor. Wyatt is open right now for students who are looking for support in completing the 2024-2025 FAFSA. Also, what's unique about Wyatt is it's not just a one-way road. It's not just the student asking questions and getting answers. Wyatt's also going to proactively reach out to students and nudge them along in the process of completing their FAFSA. And critically important this year, we've designed a lot of the content to ensure that it is helping students who are returning navigate the changes from EFC to SAI, and all the other changes around parent contributors and the shortening of the FAFSA. They're seeing things they haven't seen before, and how do they translate that to what they've done in the past. So when students sign up for Wyatt, they're going to receive a quick introductory text over if they're signing up for the SMS bot. They can sign up for this at getfafsahelp.org. And then here you'll see an example of some of those proactive texts that are generically set to go out bi-weekly. We do have some state partnerships where we can customize that engagement plan. And, Louisiana is one of our state partners on the call today, and they'll share a bit about their experience in a moment. And the good thing about Wyatt is students can ask questions at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So typically, the student might be sitting down with their parent to fill out the FAFSA at 8 p.m. on a weekend. They may not have access to their school counselor to get some of the nitty-gritty questions answered, but Wyatt's going to be there in their hand or on desktop to help them get that answer. And the content in Wyatt is really focused around the barriers that students are facing. So in accessing the FAFSA. So again, getting their FSA ID set up and ensuring their parent also has one set up for this year. Technical issues they may be running into as they're completing the form. Is it submitted? How do I know that my FSAD is verified, or if I've been selected for verification? I think one of the number one questions we see, and I think most on the call would agree, is who is their contributor? And so we're helping them figure that out. What's really awesome in the SMS bot version of Wyatt, it's not just directing them to an FSA resource to figure out who their contributor is, but Wyatt's going to ask them a series of yes and no questions to really help them figure out in a decision tree which parent should be helping them fill out the FAFSA. And of course, questions around documentation, and then some of those more unique situations around undocumented status or DACA status, mixed status households, and which schools and how many schools they can be listing on their FAFSA. And so I think we next have, one more slide, sorry. So we've had the tech support version of Wyatt for 5 years now. And like I said, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week on-demand assistance. It's free to use for students, and it includes that proactive communication plan to students to keep them on their FAFSA completion track. New this year, we're also launching an on-website web chat version of Wyatt that is still in beta, but it's more of a generative AI and creates more of a conversational approach with the student. Still has that same 24/7 on-demand help. It's still free for students to use, but we've removed even one more barrier. There's no opt-in necessary. You can just go to the website and start using the tool right now. And for high school counselors that might be on the call, this is a critically important tool that you can maybe use in your office if you don't want to use your phone with a student, but want to use Wyatt when you're helping a student complete their FAFSA. You can use this right on your desktop in your office. And now we have 2 demo videos. The first one is going to be a little bit more interactive, so I won't speak over it, and I'll go ahead and have Annika start that video now. All right, so obviously that was a little demonstration video of our SMS text bot showing you, how Wyatt is interacting with the student as they're asking it questions. And of course, the website here again, if you want to go and check it out. We have another demo that is for our web bot. This one's not as markety. As I mentioned, the web bot is in beta version, so I'll voice over this one a little bit as we go through it. But this is what you'll see when you go to the getfafsahelp.org website, and you go ahead and start it, Annika. And in the bottom left-hand corner or right-hand corner here, you'll see the interactive chat bot. And as I said, it's just as simple as clicking on that to get started, and you can immediately start chatting with Wyatt on the web bot. You'll notice as the answers are coming in, it's actually happening in live time. The answers are being generated based on the specific question that's being asked by the student or the counselor. And here you see, asking which parent to include, much longer response, giving a lot of context on how to figure that question out, including some links that individuals can click to get more information on the FSA website. Here's a question around, when will I find out how much aid I will receive? And again, Wyatt quickly responding in real time in a more conversational format around what they can expect. Again, with links included for additional context and information. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about the impact and engagement we've seen with Wyatt thus far. So to date, we've helped over 33,000 students in accessing over $40 million in federal financial aid through Wyatt usage. All this data is prior to this current FAFSA year, just for context. Wyatt usage is associated with higher FAFSA completion rates. So we see that those that are using Wyatt are completing their FAFSA at higher rates than users who are not using Wyatt. And we see this particularly pronounced among low-income students, where we see completion rates much higher than their non-low-income peers. So those students that are probably navigating this process for the first time maybe not have the same kind of support at home because maybe their parents didn't go through the college application process. It's an additional resource in addition to school counselors that can help them complete the FAFSA. And then in terms of engagement, we see that over 3/4 of students that are receiving those proactive text messages from Wyatt are responding to them, engaging with them, using them as a way to remind themselves to continue down their completion journey. And most of our users are describing their experience as good or excellent, and that's across students and counselors. And then most students who used Wyatt see the SMS version as a great method of communication. And again, we haven't collected a whole lot of information on our web chat, but we are seeing a pretty strong uptake of the web version of the chatbot and are excited about what capabilities that will bring in the future. So now you must be asking, how do you get this in the hands of your students? We actually have a lot of great free downloadable customizable resources for educators for counselors, for parents, community-based organizations to use to help get Wyatt in front of students. And I think one of my colleagues is going to drop a link in the chat to our educator resources page where you can find all these templates and use in your classrooms or use in your conversations with community-based partners as you continue to find resources to help. These can be particularly useful as high school graduation is coming right around the corner, and many students may find themselves without the dedicated support of a school counselor, but still need to complete as deadlines for both financial aid at the state level and institutions are moving into the summer months. And we'll leave it with this. There's a QR code here as well if you'd rather use that to go and check Wyatt out on the website. And I'll just remind you, a great 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week resource that your students can use in their FAFSA completion. And it's totally free for students to start using right now. And I now would like to bring my colleague or partner, Ebony Holmes, back on screen. LOSFA is a current partner of Wyatt, and I'd like for her to share a bit about her experience in using it in their FAFSA completion strategy this year.
Thank you. So last year we were at the NCAN conference and we came across some of the information for Wyatt. And during one of the policy leaders meetings, I happened to be at the table with someone from Benefits Data Trust. And I was like, she kind of gave me a layout of what Wyatt did. And I was just super excited because we're always looking for different ways to kind of amplify the work that we're already doing. And so I took that information back to my executive director. We had a few meetings. Benefits Data Trust, some of the meetings that we had with you guys have been some of the most efficient meetings ever. Straight to the point. We worked out kind of what we wanted with Wyatt. And so right now we have a co-branded page where, it has our information, the Benefits Data Trust logo, and our students are able to interact with Wyatt. Again, it's just great for summer is coming up. School won't be in session, but they'll have access to Wyatt. They have access to Wyatt 24/7. So we've been promoting Wyatt to our high school counselors whenever we do our statewide professional development training. In all of our counselor communications that we send out, we're promoting Wyatt. We have also used Wyatt in our texting campaign with our returning college students as well. So not just for those students that are graduating high school, but also making sure our students that are renewing are taken care of. And then Shane and our communications team made sure that we were running a paid ad on Facebook. And again, just for the summer, we're really going to be pushing Wyatt as a tool for when school is out that they can use to get that assistance, even though they may not have access to their counselor. And then just also with the web chat version that he spoke of, we're looking forward to incorporating that as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ebony. And I think we have one more slide. If folks have general questions about Wyatt, I know there are some coming through the Q&A and we'll address some of those, but you can feel free to reach out to me at highered@bdtrust.org with any Wyatt questions, and myself or one of my colleagues will be sure to get back to you, including anyone out there who is interested in getting it in students' hands as quickly as possible. We're happy to help point you in the right direction for that. So thank you, Ebony. I think we're going to transition back over to the full panel, and we have some questions that have been coming in while we've been talking. And Annika, if we could ask, maybe go back to the previous slide just in case people want to use that QR code to access Wyatt at any point. So first, I'd like to just start off with this question that's been asked a few different ways, but generally, what would you recommend to folks who are, experiencing delays in getting responses from FSA and the Department of Ed at the national level? We all know that they are extremely overwhelmed with the amount of things coming in. So, there are a lot of Louisiana, Pennsylvania, and Indiana participants in the audience today, just based on the panelists that are here. So what would you say to those folks in your state? How can they best get resources to support right now? And I'll just let anybody jump in as you would like.
I'll say here in Pennsylvania, we have already been having students and parents reach out to their higher education access partners here at FIA. So if there is something that we can assist with, we do try to answer those questions. There are some things that do have to be handled through the Department of Ed. So in those situations, we just encourage them to keep reaching out if there's something that needs to be corrected from the Department of Ed. But depending on what the issue is, it may be something that we may be able to help with. So we would encourage families to reach out to their access partner. Our contact information is available on our website, and I'll actually put it in the chat for everyone to access.
I think with Louisiana, our strategy is similar. Basically just making ourselves available as a resource, whatever it is that they need, talked about earlier, kind of meeting them where they are to make sure they get the assistance they need. And then also, as far as looking at the condensed timeline and, trying to make a decision about where I need to go, FAFSA, stuff isn't ready. And it's like trying to empower them to understand, you may be waiting on an offer from your post-secondary institution, and they're also swamped right now. But promoting, we have a portal that our students in our state can use to track their eligibility towards a scholarship. We have those award amounts on the system. So using that, student aid estimators to try to get a gauge of how much you may be getting in funding, so you can at least have a general idea before that, because we know that we're delayed in getting a response and what you're going to be receiving in aid, but just trying to empower them to be able to at least kind of, how much will I receive, to help them kind of make a decision, or not make a decision, but at least be informed so that they at least kind of know where they may want to lean before they get that decision. Just knowing that post-secondary institutions are pushed back and kind of overwhelmed right now as well. So those delays are going to be critical in them trying to do what they can to try to minimize that, so they can try to make a decision as best they can, I guess, instead of kind of waiting until they get full award letter, knowing that it's just going to take some time. Just everything is just really pushed back right now.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty aware that there have been issues. Our outreach coordinators are always there to assist, especially now that our state deadline is passed. They're all fully trained in how to file appeals. So we always recommend students and parents to document everything. We're very understanding in our appeals process, but it's always good to have somebody to help assist you with that. So I recommend reaching out to your outreach coordinator, or if you're at an institution, there are success coaches for you to reach out to as well.
I think I'd want to point out the workarounds and the alerts that have been shared that can be accessed at FSA. A lot of issues that families have experienced have been experienced by others, and they have developed resolutions. So that's a good place to start as well. And just a reminder that there's a lot of folks that want to support. So utilize the networks that include financial aid offices.
Fantastic. Thank you for all those great resources. This next question has been asked quite a bit in the chat, and there's a conversation going on. And so we just want to make sure that we address it and clarify. And we talked about this a little bit in the actual panel discussion, but if each state could speak on this at least once, is FAFSA required for students to complete in your state?
It is not required in Pennsylvania.
Right now in Louisiana, it is for the graduation requirement for 2024 high school graduates, public high school graduates. They can either do a waiver, they can submit the FAFSA, or else they can complete a TOPS Online application, which is the application for our signature scholarship. With the policy being repealed, that will take effect for graduates next year. So for 2025 graduates.
Yes, it is required in Indiana. There is a waiver process for students who don't want to file. And the specific legislation, if they wanted to look that up, is the Senate Enrolled Act 167 from 2023.
Fantastic. Thank you all for bringing some clarity to that. This next question is a little bit long, but I think it's a critically important one. So the asker asks, I work with a national organization working with students experiencing homelessness. Unaccompanied homeless youth and foster youth need to provide documentation as independent students. I'm curious how your states have trained staff about specific provisions for homeless and foster youth, and 2, ensure that those students are receiving this documentation before the school year ends, even though college might not be requesting that documentation. until after the school year ends. You want to jump in there? I can just kind of shorten it down to, how are you all approaching and supporting students experiencing homelessness or foster youth?
In Pennsylvania, here at FIA, we do financial aid nights across the state, where we do discuss that in our financial aid night presentations, that is one of the criteria that would make a student independent. In addition to that, we do specific outreach with different community organizations like Valley Youth House, different counties, children and youth organizations, to provide more specific targeting information to that population of students. In addition to that, though, I think that in general, I believe usually the high schools take more of a lead role in that, as far as making sure that they're getting their documentation in prior to the end of the school year. I know in Pennsylvania, each school district is supposed to have a point of contact for students to utilize. So I would encourage them to reach out to them.
That's about the same lines for Louisiana as well, is that we'll go out, we do the financial aid presentations, and tell them, we talk about the how it impacts dependency on the FAFSA, generally letting them know that you are going to have to provide some sort of documentation. For us, the school, of course, is going to be kind of responsible for making sure that information is there if the financial aid office reaches out for it, but really telling the student, one, to make sure once you submitted that FAFSA, when you're going through that admissions process, that you're keeping in contact with your financial aid office and your post-secondary institution that you're going to be attending. And then also we have comprehensive advising officers on staff for those students that may need additional support or access to wraparound services, and also providing that as a resource as well in case they need access to those resources as they're kind of moving through high school and going into college.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, so we have the 21st Century Scholars Program, which is helpful in identifying students who may be in foster care. So those students could be identified by their outreach coordinators and receive extra assistance if needed. Also, those outreach coordinators are great about being a connection, both from the K-12 side all the way to the institutions, because they also work closely with our private and public institutions in Indiana.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we're down to less than a minute here. There were quite a few other questions. So for those who asked them, like I said, we'll be sure to try to follow up with those questions over email following the presentation. I'd like to just give one more huge thank you to all of our panelists today from Indiana, Louisiana, and Pennsylvania, and sharing so many great resources and strategies to increase FAFSA completion. Congratulations to Pennsylvania for getting your deadline extended. I know that will help a lot of students. Great news this morning to kick off with. And again, if you have any general questions that you didn't get a chance to ask or weren't answered today, reach out to us at highered@bdttrust.org. And if you want to use Wyatt or get Wyatt in the hands of your students, go to getfafsahelp.org and start using that today as well. So thank you so much, everyone, and we'll go ahead and end today's panel.